Hey, Rush Nation, what is going on? Welcome to the 5 Yard IDP pod with me, Nath Davis. Today we'll be breaking some big news and regarding our scoring system especially, and a future collaboration. Also, both myself and Bren will be picking 3 guys who we see as IDP risers in 2022. Talking about Bren, how you been, man? You been good?
Yeah, I've been very good, mate. It's been a while. What's this second one of the year? But yeah, free agency's been keeping everyone entertained. I've ordered my Tyreek shirt. Yeah, happy Finns fans. But yeah, good, and just glad to be back and talking to everyone. To be honest, mate.
Yeah. I'm really happy to get it back rolling again and start concentrating on some football. I mean, I know the free agency was. I think it's probably one of my favourite times of the year. Actually, when it actually kicks off, I absolutely love it. Maybe edges out the draft. The problem is with the draft, the build-up's really good, and then I don't know, it all just tails off then, and then you wonder whether any of them are going to be what you thought.
Yeah, it's like I said at the weekend. I mean, after the Tyreek deal, it's not a lot to look forward to for Dolphins fans at the draft. It's giving away all the picks, but
don't worry about that, mate. Don't worry.
No. I don't think we've overpaid, and we'll be good to. We've still kept most of our picks for next season's draft or next year's draft, and I don't think they've overpaid, to be honest. So, but we'll see. But,
happy days. Right, let's get to our news. So over the off season, I've been reviewing our scoring system and talking to a few of the guys that played last year. And really, we kind of come to the conclusion that changes needed to be made, especially when it comes to trading value, the trade value of defensive players, especially in deals with offensive players. I think the problem's really about comfort. Lots of people would have been through this that have been in the IDP community for a while and that have been running various different leagues, trying to find different ways that can engage as many people as possible. Now, for me personally, I could quite easily see a player's value because I'd done the homework, I'd done the spreadsheets, etc., and loads of information that I had to hand, and a few others. Obviously, they'd done their homework, but across the board, there's a lot of people that play IDP and play fantasy football that just they've never bothered with a spreadsheet. They've never actually worked out what a value is, what each player's value is. Never done tiers or anything like that, and that have been quite successful. Now, we don't want to alienate those. So one of the ways that they become quite good is they listen to as much content as they probably can from podcasts, stuff on Twitter. And they get their information based on, you could say, Derrick Henry, Eckler, a load about running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. You can pick it up really quite quickly because there's so many people talking about it. Now, in the IDP world, there isn't that much that you can pick up that quickly. So you do need to do your homework. Now, when it comes to the scoring side of things, we just felt with our scoring, it became a little bit difficult to explain, really, and to go through and to compare those values with just the guys that we had in the league. So let alone open it up to the masses that weren't playing our leagues, who were setting up their own. So from our side, obviously what we want to do is we want to talk about what we're doing. We want to pod about it. We want to, I think most of all, we felt a bit isolated from just us and the guys that were in our leagues and maybe a few others that knew what we were doing. But apart from that, felt a bit isolated. So what we're going to do this time, we're gonna try and work with others to produce content to get the message over, to get the trade values over. So we're going to try and compare defensive players with offensive players, value-wise, and try and get that information out so that people can confidently make trades and know that they're getting a good deal, or that they're not, ripping somebody off. Because I got asked so many questions about, do you think this is reasonable or not? And I was like, well, look at the comparative scoring. Yeah, actually, yeah, that's a good trade, or yeah, that's silly, but it is about people feeling comfortable and doing that. And the only way you can do is if you've got the knowledge. So hence moving away, possibly, well, not fully moving away, but we're going to adopt a new scoring. So let's have a look at, let me just do an example a bit more on that. So to make it easier, like I said, we're gonna adopt somebody else's scoring, and we're gonna help. We're gonna work with them to produce content and data to help people understand and interact with us both on IDP. The scoring and the team we will be working with is Fantasy and Frames. Now, Fantasy and Frames guys, I've known them for a while, and I was involved actually last year. I came runner-up in their Fantasy and Frames charity tournament, and I managed to interact with a lot of good guys in that that were involved in it. And yeah, they all felt my pain when it came to trying to adapt trying to go through scoring settings and all that. So they've come up with a scoring system. I've had a real good meeting with Jorge, who runs that. That was on the weekend. I set out my plan. We discussed everything, including we'll refer to it as FIF scoring, which is their fantasy and frame scoring, and especially their sleeper scoring. They've got a few formats for different platforms, but we're mainly on sleeper anyway. A majority of our audience is on sleeper. The guys that play in our leagues currently, and guys that I'm heavily involved with, they're mainly playing on sleeper. So that is going to be where we're going to be basing our scoring off. So it'll be the fancy and frame scoring in the sleeper settings. Ourselves and fantasy and frames guys, we're very, very similar outlooks. We face many of the same issues when getting the IDP message out to people. So we're really excited to announce this. We'll be pointing you guys at their content and obviously referencing the scoring and getting as many people involved as possible. Our content will obviously be the podcast, but we hope to add. We're looking at adding a writer to the team as well, so we can get a few articles out there. So yeah, I mean, if anybody's interested watching this in IDP and you've got some time to write a few articles, hit me up on Twitter at NATO NFL, and we can have a chat through and go from there. So yeah, I mean, yeah, just a note on that though, the 3 IDP plus dynasty leagues that we've got running, they are continuing. So if you're in those, no need to worry. Nothing's really going to change in those. So yeah, there's the news. Fantasy and frames, we're going to be hopefully sharing a hell of a lot of data between each other and then coming up with some good stuff to get out there. So what's your thoughts on all of that, Bren? Obviously,
well, you've covered most of it fairly comprehensively, but no, I mean, as Nate touched on, we've been discussing this for a little while now, and it is just about basically a collaboration. It's to do with, as Nate said, sharing that data, and not, we probably will, we'll listen to each other's content, read each other's content, but it's all about, no one's going to take, as Nate's discussed with the guys at Fantasy and Frames, no one's going to be upset if someone takes an idea from one pod or the other, or one article or the other, and runs with it. Obviously they're set up the other side of the pond, and it's all about collectively just trying to just educate people about the scoring system, instilling that confidence, as Nath said. And
they've got some really good stuff lined up. They're good guys. They've just got a Hollywood Titan. he's joined their team as well at this moment in time. So I mean, yeah, they're really going in the right direction. And it's not necessarily that we're going to be a part of it. It's more about the sort of sharing side of things. From my side of things, I want to talk to people about everything that we're doing. And I do feel that we just ended up slightly in our own little bubble with our own league members talking about lots of stuff. I had lots of conversations with different people on Twitter throughout last year, asking various different questions on various different players and things like that. But on the fantasy front, yeah, it just felt a little bit, we were doing one thing, they were doing something else, somebody else was doing something else. Everybody's doing different scoring, different things. And it's really difficult to, be really confident about what you're saying if you don't know your product. Anybody does that in whatever you work in whatever you do. And it's exactly the same here with the IDP. We want to, it's not that we want to be right all the time, or we want to be, it's nothing to do with that. It's just the fact that we can give that kind of guidance based on our scoring settings, what works for us, and the leagues that we play in, and exactly the same with Fantasy and Frame Guide. They're doing exactly the same kind of lines. They've got some really good in-depth analysis on players, and they've been doing it longer than we have. So I mean, we can learn a lot from them, which is absolutely great. I mean, as a nation, we're behind on the IDP front anyway, and these guys, I think, can. They already help us by us listening to their content. So, it's all good.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just, in the short period I've been listening to a few of the pods, it's not a million miles away from what we've done sort of our first season sort of last year. But that enthusiasm comes across as well. I mean, just, listening to one this morning, they were all in. I mean, really just talking about the DBs, and it was, how important safety is going to be with this new scoring system, and it ties in with the way safeties are used nowadays. Especially sort of the strong safeties and the impact they have on games and the points they could accumulate, and how you could take a Jordan Whitehead and compare him with someone like. I don't know. They were picking out sort of a few sort of
offensive players, were they?
Yeah,
did they pick those?
He was like Tyler Lockett. I mean, that would be
a
direct comparison based on the point scoring. And go, well, that would be that, and that's what Nath's saying. It's putting players that and you're comfortable with in a trade on a par with players where you go, well, how do I qualify that? How do I trade almost? So
yeah, that's it. I mean, the thing is we know, everybody. We've been playing fantasy now for a while, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners have people that are, on the offensive side of things, and like what pretty much you can go down quite deep now. I think it's quite common knowledge. Like people will probably know if I said to him, how much do you think Devontae Parker's worth, or how much, you know what I mean? Oh, just a player that. Yeah, but you know what I mean. But in the grand scale of something, somebody would have an opinion on that, but they wouldn't have a clue on, I don't know, a second, third string sort of linebacker that where does he rank? It could be down to snap count. You could have a look at so many things, but the main thing is us being able to compare the points scored. I think the key is mainly going to be around average points scored. Average points scored per week. That's going to be a real good marker for us to be able to compare an offensive wide receiver. What does he score? 17 points. Right, okay. What did the linebacker score? 17 points. Right, okay. There you go. It's that simple. But it's having that knowledge to confidently put a trade together. You don't, you want to be able to do it reasonably quickly on 50% of trades, you know what I mean? Yes, some you're going to need to better work on and look into it, but it's more the ones that you can do quite quickly. If you're going to overthink the trade, then you haven't watched enough content, or you haven't, you know what I mean? You need to know. You need to think, oh, hello, this, I'm quite happy. I'm gonna make that move, bang, like that. Off your phone, bang, I'm gonna do that. Not think, oh, hang on, I haven't got a clue. What is he? Let me ask 15. It never, that trade will never go through. You'll, be too long. So yeah, we're just trying to get that content out there, and like I said, share it between each other. Get point our listeners at their content as well. We can never cover off everything. We've only got a certain amount of bandwidth. And there we go. So yeah, so right, so that's the news bit. So let's move on to let's go for it. Let's go for some of these players, shall we? Let's go for We're picking up. So what we're doing is we're going to talk about 2022 IDP risers. We've just picked some random players. I mean, there's probably hundreds that we could have picked from, and lots of different reasons, and we could go on. But there's just a few here. Bren's he's gone a different line to what I've gone. I've gone for, what have I got? I've gone for
some more tried and tested.
I've gone for one obvious one. One who IDP players will say, yeah, I get that one. And then one that a lot of people don't seem to be hot on. However, I just got a feeling they could have a real monster season depending on what happens in the next few months.
Yeah. So as Nate said, I've gone a little bit left field with this. So I've gone more towards, I picked 3 younger players and one in particular I'll explain in a minute. But so guys that, again, it is probably for sort of deeper leagues or someone but I think there's definitely some value there. So and maybe one we've sort of touched on last season, but yeah, so we're trying to cover a couple of different bases sort of between the 6 of them, really. So but as Nate said, it's not been easy because there's a smorgasbord of players out there that you could sort of talk about, but we've done a bit of homework, so hopefully it sort of makes some sense. So where do you want to start then?
Go on, you're up first. You're going. Go on then.
So I'm going for this one. Isn't that out of left field? So I've actually looked at Jason Away, or Odafe Away, as he's now listed on Sleepers at the Ravens. So looking at linebacker. So he's one of those players that we always like because you can slot him in at sort of LB and sort of DL as well. But the essence is he's an edge rusher, basically. So coming off his rookie season, he had a reasonable season for his rookie season. He was sort of over the 120 point mark, 33 tackles, 5 sacks. He saw a fair percentage of snaps over the season. What I like about Away going into this season is obviously he's coming into his second season. He's he's settled in with the team. We didn't see enough consistency from him. He's got the speed. There's no question about that. He's quick off that edge. He will trouble sort of O-lines and quarterbacks. The interesting thing is why he should be on the radar now is that one person that was impacting last season on his productivity from a fantasy point of view and his sort of snap count was Justin Houston, who the Ravens brought in for one season. Now, the guy's 33. Everything I've read suggests that he's probably going to be, he's not going to be on the roster come the summer. If he is, then it'll be as a contingency plan. We've seen Away have some very good games. Again, it's I just think at the moment he's going into this season. I don't see any reason the Ravens are a big blitzing team. So it fits his game set nicely, in my opinion. So, as I said, he had a fairly sort of, easy, he was sort of eased into the season by the Ravens last year. But I think the Houston factor, is going to see Away see a lot more snaps. And with that speed, as I say, coming off the edge with a big blitzing defense like the Ravens, I can't see any reason why he doesn't produce. I think his IDP value should be up considerably before the start of the season. He's definitely one I would be looking at the very least on a bench. But if you've got a gap there, it's again that sort of flexible sort of L. But in essence, he's as DL. But
I was really high on him in the draft last year. And him going to Baltimore was a great landing spot. I thought, obviously, it's a rookie season, so you got to, give him a bit of time to sort of settle in. This could be a real big year for him, as you said. They obviously attempted to sign Zadarius Smith, and that all went Pete Tong for him, which I'm delighted about.
Purple, so
yeah, I'm delighted about, but it does show that that the Ravens are going to do. You would think they're going to do something. I mean, depending on which way they go now as well. I don't know. This could be they could just try and add to it with not such a big name as Zadarius Smith, and end up with asking Jason Away to step up quicker. I mean, it's going to be an interesting year for him, and I'll get. There's a big potential there that this could be his spot to take, and not only spot to take, but I mean it could be it's open there. There's not a pass rusher there that is. Well, at this moment in time, there isn't a pass rusher there that is going to be the main man on the block. So, I mean, if he has a good start to the season and they don't sign anybody of real name, then it's going to be it could be straight away that he absolutely shoots to the sky, and that's what you want. So anybody seeing him, not being drafted or on waivers or whatever, or even on deep drafts where you find him just kicking around and you think, well, he's definitely worth a punt.
I mean, looking down the stats from last season, when in games where he's had a decent snap count, sort of 35, 40 plus, he's been mid-teens and in some cases above. He picked up well over 20 against us in week 10. So that has, again, rookie season, that's been offset by some,
615 snaps or 65%. I mean, that's decent. That's decent, man, from a rookie that is, okay, it's not, they don't rotate as much as some teams, the Ravens. I mean, they're no Buffalo Bills, but still that's decent in a rookie season. They've got the confidence in him. There's no change of coaching or anything like that. So you look at it and go, well, this potentially is, I think they must value him really highly. And there's a big potential there that he could go off the charts this year.
Yeah. I mean, and looking at their free agency so far, I mean, we don't know, what they're going to do in the draft, but, defensively, they've not really done anything. Tony Everett's gone to Vegas. They brought in Marcus Williams, safety
good
from
signing that.
But I mean that's a good one for the secondary. But in terms of the front seven, it's sort of probably going to be sort of as you were. I mean, there's been rumors. I mean, like they have been in contact with Wagner, aren't they? That's what they've been saying. Bobby Wagner's on that list as well as the Rams that seem to be nibbling around him. I mean, that would be amazing for somebody like. Well, I say it would be amazing for somebody like Patrick Queen. I think it would be because I think Patrick Queen is one of those people at this moment in time that is needing some guidance. Well, I think that's why they bought Josh Bynes, but then Josh Bynes ended up really taking his job. So, but anyway, we're not talking about him. Let's go on to my first one. And for my first pick, I've got to go Jordan Brooks. And I know the Fantasy Frames guys and loads of other people have already covered off Jordan Brooks this year. I mean, wow.
but it's difficult when you talk about risers. It's difficult not to talk about him. As I said, it's not a surprise. He had a monster 2021. He finishing in the fantasy and frame scoring. He finished at a linebacker 3. If you use TJ Watt as an edge play and played him at DL. So 285.5 points in the fantasy frame scoring. Now, a lot of people probably look at it and think to themselves, well, him being that high up the board, how can he improve on it? Well, obviously, it's the Bobby Wagner thing. Now, Bobby Wagner also he broke his record for the combined tackles last year. We're not sure who's going to be alongside Jordan Brooks this year. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how that all pans out. Really is. So yeah, but are we saying that with no Bobby Wagner there, that equals more tackles? I don't know. I mean, sure of that, but what I would say is that is definitely worth predicting on the fact that it is Bobby Wagner that's gone. That that there's some serious tackle numbers to pick up there, and if you're now the leading linebacker. I mean, yeah, it's difficult. The issue that you're going to really have is going to be in drafts. Is how much are you willing to pay for him? A recent mock I've seen, very recent actually today. He went after Devon White and before Fred Warner. So, this is the kind of level that we're talking about here. So anybody that doesn't know who Jordan Brooks is, do your homework. It won't take long to get that, because of how much for 2021 he had. So yeah, let's talk about some stats really. So why he's ranked so highly? It's his second season 2021, and it was a breakout year for him. 183 combined tackles, 109 of them were solo. 1,107 snaps, 87% of snaps, a missed tackle percentage of 4.7%, which is quite fantastic, really. I'm sure that contributed to the idea to let Wagner go. I mean, they've got somebody there that they can already trust. So yeah, why would you pay? Because you're going to have to pay to bring Bobby Wagner back. So for me, this is Jordan Brooks' defense now. And I'm excited to really see him grow in 2022 and see if he can take that step, take the senior role, and and then we'll all be talking about him as where potentially he should be. So yeah, there we go. What do you reckon about that then, Bren? Are you all in on Mr. Brooks?
Well, I am, but for a slightly different reason. I mean, all the stats aside, and you can't really argue with it. But the stat for me really, or the factor for me, and this ties in with someone I'm going to mention in a little while as well. It's what's going on the other side of the ball. We quite often talk about how much that defense is going to be. Now, Seattle have dropped down to 24th in the power rankings. They're back in, in Dan Hanser's own words. I was just looking at it a minute ago. They're back in the quarterback wilderness again. You're not really sure what you're going to get from that offense, what's going on with the Pete Carroll situation. So again, you're looking at those tackle numbers being big, not great for Seattle fans, but that's not what we're to talk about.
Exactly.
More time on the field. And so, yeah, I think, like you say, if people aren't in on him, then, you've covered off the stats. I've just given you an ulterior motive to go and get him, because he's going to be, all things being equal, a busy boy, unless Seattle do something radical. Yeah. But I just don't see it at the moment. I think they're, although they're saying they're not in a transitional period, or Pete Carroll sort of talked that down, I don't know how you can really. It's just
But Pete Carroll isn't, not at his age. But
no, you can afford to transition at 94 and a half or whatever he is.
Yeah, but I mean, but surely Seattle are in the transitional period, whatever they say. Yeah, I mean, they've got to be. And yeah, you touched on something there that I'd like to add, in the fact that, this is an IDP podcast based on fantasy football. Sometimes we will talk about players and we'll be saying that they're good. They're good at fantasy. That's what we're talking about. We're not telling you that they're the best linebacker or the best whatever in the world. Sometimes we will, but majority of the times we are talking mainly from a fantasy perspective. And that needs to be sort of like said. But also, like you said there, you talk about teams. It's a fact. At the end of the day, if you're on the field longer, and you've got a very high snap count, that it's just facts. That's just facts. They're on the field longer, and also in teams that potentially could be ahead against them. And when you've got players that are particularly good at stopping the run, well, the likelihood is the team in those later quarters, they're going to be running the hell out of the ball. So, the maths speak for themselves when it comes to it. And it is something to bear in mind when you're talking about fantasy. It's not necessarily the best players that get you the best points. Not always. But anyway, that's just a sideline.
No, but yeah, well, actually, that's a nice little segue actually into, if we're going to
I just see who your next man is. No, I'm just joking.
So while we're talking about teams in transition and the relevance, so I'm going to move over to the Falcons.
Transition, you say?
Yeah. So
you could call it that.
Yeah. Well, okay. Seattle might be in transition. The Falcons are maybe a couple of steps behind that. But so this one's a little out of left field. And I want to talk about their linebacker, Mykal Walker. Now, what's prompted this in the main? Now, you look at his stats from last year. Again, another young player, 24, LB sort of 127 or thereabouts off last season. Yep, okay, he only had, looking down the stats briefly, 2 games over where he was over sort of the 15-point mark, and they were against sort of the Jags and the Panthers. But what has prompted me to suggest someone look at this kid is, again, it's a case of what's happened in free agency. So obviously the Falcons have had to offload Foyce Alucon. He's gone to the Jags. There are rumblings that they may, because of they're in this sort of rebuild, basically. I don't think it's a transitional period for the Falcons. It's a sort of, almost strip the guts out and go again situation. They might be looking to carve a bit more out of that cap space. And they've already got, they had to let someone go. Alucon's already gone. They've still got Deion Jones and Grady Jarrett on massive contracts, bigger than Foyce. This is where I think you're looking at a player like Mykal Walker having a big role in this team next year. He's not a rookie. He's coming into his 3rd season. He's settled in the team. Yeah, okay. We don't have a lot of stats to go on because he's not seen a huge amount of time on the field. But again, you're looking at what's happened in free agency, how he slots into that Falcons defense during this rebuild process. And again, you've got a defense that is invariably going to spend a lot of time on the field. Now, we're not going to compare Brooks and Walker, that you're talking about someone who's had a monster season, with someone who could potentially have maybe not a breakout, but I think a solid, consistent season. So if you're looking for someone that's going to rack up, 200 fantasy points, possibly not. But I could see him going for, possibly 140, 150 points this season. Again, going to be a busy boy. Defense gets tired, as Nath touched on. They're getting battered by the run game, and he's in the prime position to be racking up those tackles. So, as I say, a little bit of left field. This is why we've come at it from slightly different angles. But everything suggests, with everything going on at the Falcons, that someone like Walker could have a pretty solid season, all things being equal.
Yeah, man, I like it. I really like it. Looking at his stats, it's quite interesting reading. Like you said, there isn't a great deal to sort of go on. But obviously, we had the the Atlanta-Jacksonville game. That's a London game, wasn't it? Was that a London game?
No, that was us.
Yeah, that was us.
Yeah.
That was you, not us.
That was my fault.
Nothing to do with me. Yeah, but looking at the stats, he had the Jacksonville game where he 99% of the snaps. So he was, somebody must have been out that week.
Yeah.
But looking at the last 4 games, he's got kind of like 14%, 15%, 14%, 25%, which seem to be like, there's definitely an uptick there towards the back end. And with Foyce out the way, you just get this feeling. I really like this pick from you, Bren, because I just got this feeling that, he is somebody, because you know what? Look, you only just got to go on past figures. The past 2 seasons, I know. Okay. There's been changes at the Falcons. They've got a different scheme, different ideas, and all this kind of stuff. But on a rebuild team like they're going to be, they can't rebuild everything that quickly. So what will happen is that they'll probably fall back to what they know in the short term. And in the short term, I think you're going to see that sort of 2 linebacker cover 2 stuff, which they seem to be quite kind of secure with. It's really interesting looking at that. And if that's the case, Mikael Walker does definitely look in line. And if he is, he could be an absolute steal. Because you know what those linebackers produce. You know, even last year, we were talking about playing Jones and Alucon together.
Yeah.
You know, which is kind of crazy when you think about it, because you think, well, there can be enough to go around for both of them. But majority of the time, there kind of was. So, I mean, great pick for me. Great pick for me. And, definitely somebody to have a gander on. So, for me, again, I'm not going as random at this moment in time as Brendan. Random Brendo. But I'm going more this one. Hang on one sec. Right, now I'm ready. Okay, for number 2, I'm going linebacker again. And I'm going for a guy that I was super high on last year. Especially early part of the year when the Philadelphia Eagles did not have a clue what the hell they were doing. And they kept chopping and changing and mixing it up. And then they sort of started to steady their ship. And I think a lot of it was down to this man, TJ Edwards. I think they've got something there. I can't believe it took him so long to work out how poor Alex Singleton was. Again, this is not IDP. This is Alex Singleton, again, racked up some serious points on IDP. But this is just from if a player's too bad, then you risk them being cut or not being played. So you've got to be careful. You know, when we talk sometimes that a bad player could be okay for IDP because he gets targeted or whatever, then just be careful with that, because if they do get cut, then obviously, and now Singleton has been cut, obviously it's in the off season, so nobody really got impacted if they had him. But yeah, good luck to Denver as well. Sorry, going back to him. Good luck to Denver because he is shocking in coverage. But TJ Edwards, back to TJ Edwards. For me, he's an athlete who's a decent all-round linebacker. Now, I know the Eagles have just added Kazir White, and we've had lots of conversations of where we see it. I see Kazir White as the second man, the weak side linebacker. If you want to be, they're not really called that anymore, I don't think. I think this is more, again, cover 2. This is the 2 linebackers, and they will rotate Kazir White and probably Davion Taylor. I'm really high on Kazir White. I think he had a great season on. And if he'd have stayed at the Chargers, I think he could have took that role and made it his own. But they've obviously got different plans. So yeah, I rate Davion Taylor, like I said. But for me, TJ Edwards, he now has the chance to really kick on, to be a leader here, and I'm excited to see if he can be. And this is why. This is really interesting reading. So last season stats, he had 685 snaps, 64%, which you might go, whatever. Okay. But he managed 130 combined tackles. So that's high anyway, right? But this is the real madness when you look at it. And his season didn't really not kick off until week 8. That's where it really kicked off. So if you look at the snaps, weeks 1 to 7, 41% or lower. And a lot of them quite a bit lower, actually. Week 8, they went up to 66%. Week 9 to 16, 92% or higher. So it shows you right there the difference between the split season that he had. From week 8, it went whack up there. So there you go for me. And if you look at those figures that he had, 130 combined tackles, where is his ceiling? So I haven't done any rankings yet. I'm going to get involved in that, but very soon. So I'll share those when they come out. But I think I'm going to have this guy pretty high. I can't see why not. But anyway, I see Kazir White alongside him. But I do feel, like you said, TJ Edwards, I've got a feeling he could be up there. He could be up there with Jordan Brooks and that group. For me, I'm buying and drafting TJ Edwards everywhere. So if you're in my leagues, leave him alone. It's fine. But yeah, what do you think about TJ Edwards? You know I'm high on him, man.
Yeah, so. I mean, we seem to talk a lot about Philly last season.
It was good fun. It was good fun, though. It was good, like Dallas.
We were hot on one Dallas, and then not so much the next. But as you say, yeah, towards the end of the season, that sort of defense sort of started to click. I mean, the other thing I would throw. I mean, I don't know. I mean, does a Hassan Reddick sort of deal? Come fully,
because you're talking.
I mean, I know sort of different.
Hassan Reddick's edge. So I mean, Reddick could be just used like he has been. I mean, the thing is, Reddick's quite an interesting one. I was listening to Tom Kisenbury earlier talk about Hassan Reddick, and he's an interesting one. I mean, I'm kind of high on him because from a fantasy perspective, he does score points. But yeah, I kind of know what they're talking about when it's just like, yeah, it's the time. It's how he gets used. If he didn't have the sack count, it wouldn't be there. But then that's like saying, I was going to talk about somebody who's got a decent sack count in a minute where he doesn't do a great deal else. So I'm not going to shoot down the sack count. At the end of the day, you can't really, especially the ones that are doing them year in, year out. And the problem is with Reddick is he kind of has been and on multiple different teams. So, why wouldn't he do well there?
I think it's a good fit, as you said. I mean, I've just sort of pulled up a couple of stats now. So, and you talk about, yes, okay, you can pick them both as sort of linebackers, but different animals altogether. So, I mean, you're looking at Reddick last season, 68 tackles, 11 sacks. You flick it over to TJ Edwards, 1 sack, but 125 tackles.
Yeah, but different positions by a mile, mate, though. That's just like... yeah, I mean...
But I mean, it's another argument for, or to reinforce your argument of sort of looking at an Edwards, settled, good season. They've got someone else in sort of Reddick playing that sort of edge position that's going to sort of cause different problems for the offense.
Yeah, I mean, what it does create is the thing is like, so just to explain it in layman's terms to people, like if you've got a good pass rush, then teams are likely to run on you. This is just simple stuff, real simple stuff. The idea is you've got a good pass rush, then your quarterback is then going to be under pressure, so therefore he's going to be forced to run the ball more. Fact, right? Okay. Yeah. So that's the way they go. So they've upped the pass rush. So if they up the pass rush, then potentially they could. But it's not that. It's nowhere near a science because you're looking at the teams that they're playing against and stuff like that. Then, so you got to look at how good their run games they are, how good their quarterbacks are, mobile. So it's kind of like there's nothing you can say really which says to me that anything that Hassan Reddick does, whether for me it's down to it's completely down to snap count and if TJ Edwards takes that job and makes it his own, then I think there's some serious points to be had in Philly. I think they're that kind of defense where they're very aggressive. Teams sort of either put them to the sword or don't. There's not a lot of middle ground often with Philly for me.
Yeah.
They have games where they just, they're really on it and tight and everything's working well, or it doesn't. Which again, from a fantasy perspective, it actually works quite well that way. I find it does when teams are a bit more erratic like that. And Philly are, and especially with Jalen Hurts, he's another one. The kid can have worldy weeks on shite, and the same with like receivers and all that. Philly are a little bit, boom or bust kind of team. And that makes for good fun, on the defensive side.
Which is why, like I said, we spent most of last season being really hot on Philly one week and then going,
"Oh yeah, yeah." There's a lack of consistency throughout the whole organization.
Last Sunday.
But again, I didn't feel that Philly knew all year. I didn't feel they knew. Okay, you could say Devontae Smith was their top receiver. But even when like the whole Goddard Ertz thing, and then it was like the QB, are they all behind Hurts? Are they not? Defensively, what Singleton?
Yeah.
Or TJ Edwards wasn't really a thing at the start of the season. A lot of people hoping he was, but then suddenly, boom, just lots of things. And then now they've got a new HC. So it's all changed at Philly. They might be a lot more consistent this year.
The only thing in Philadelphia that will be consistent, and it is every season, is the fans will moan about something. So
fucking hell.
Week 2, everyone out. That's it. But that's the Eagles fan base.
There you go. They've all turned off. Well then, Brad.
Yeah. Have we got a big following in Philadelphia? Not anymore.
They're massively global. The Philly fans are huge.
No, they're one of those teams. Obviously, growing up when I did, as I mentioned, when we first started doing this, it was, you always had a soft spot for those teams that were big at the time, and the Eagles, Randall Cunningham, and that sort of, that running quarterback game they had. It was years ahead of what we've become sort of used to now. So I've always had a soft spot for Philly. It'd be nice to see him do well, especially since I've got Hurts in at least one of our leagues. So please, God, play
mine
well.
was I've got. I quite like Philly now, but it's because they went from. I like teams that sort of like come back from the dead, as in, I don't know, just like being cool. I mean, they couldn't be more uncool, Philly. I mean, like Nick Foles and all that shite, Wentz, and oh my God, it's just, when you look at it, you just think, oh, it's just so painful. But they but just I don't know why, just for me. And then to come back and they've sort of like, now they're on the regen. And I think they're kind of fun. They could go either way, Philly, as well, at any time. I think they could be. I think it wouldn't shock me if 5 years they were really a force again. But it depends. It depends on how stuff pan out. But they're one of those teams, not like us, like the Vikings, fucking treading water. That's what it feels like. But that's because we've still got Kirk. But anyway, don't get me started on that. Right. Right. It's me again. And I am going. I've actually put down here. I am going out on a limb here with somebody who will probably be left on draft boards. However, I've got a feeling it might be his best season yet this year. And this is a bit of a shocker, really. I was surprised that I picked it, but it was all down to stats and down to. Probably a bit down to free agency. And I'm going for 31-year-old Arizona Cardinal edge Marcus Golden. Now, age is an issue for this guy, but I just got a feeling he could be a 1-year smash play. And that I just feel he could be. Now, this may change. You only mean it takes one sign in, and I think it could, but he finished with 189.5 points in the fantasy and frame scoring last year. And he was 1 point. This is the shocking bit. He was 1 point behind Trey Hendrickson and half a point ahead of Joey Bosa. Now, when you're talking about players of age and stuff and looking at somebody like Joey Bosa, now I'm watching Joey Bosa fly off the boards. And I'm watching him fly because I think the Khalil Mack stuff and all that, I don't think it makes a difference. I don't think it makes a difference to Joey, but it might do, but it's not at this moment in time, I don't think across the other side of the line is going to make a massive difference on real production from Joey Bosa. But there you go, half a point ahead, Marcus Golden finished. And there's no Chandler Jones this year. There's question marks over the fitness of JJ Watt. He had 11 sacks in 2021, over 16 games, and only 5 of them are the starter. But that could change based on what happens, obviously, from now to the start of the season. 4 forced fumbles, 2 forced fumble recoveries, 33 solo tackles, 15 assisted tackles, 10 tackles for a loss, 19 quarterback hits. The guy gets to the QB. 682 defensive snaps, 67%. So when you look at that side of things, there is a bit of room for maneuver. Now, because of his age, you might say, can he handle that? Are we going to see a drop? But at the end of the day, if you end up drafting this guy for nothing, or really late, or he's picking him up off waivers, whatever, I mean, for me, you could be on an absolute winner with him. You need to keep an eye on what Arizona do in free agency, as I mentioned, and in the draft. But for me, Marcus Golden at this moment in time is somebody that I am definitely going to roster. Maybe not as a starting DR, but definitely as a backup. Because if he starts and starts quite well, I'm not sure whether Arizona are going to change. They might even draft a rookie. If they draft a rookie, then he's probably going to sit behind him. Or I think Golden could be in for a year of an uptick on snaps. And if he is, then I just said he just finished just behind Trey Hendrickson. Well, I guarantee you on your draft, Trey Hendrickson is going to be going off, especially after what's just what happened in postseason. He's going to be flying off. Not based on anything that is going to, you're going to be in a better position if you draft Marcus Golden for me, just on value.
Yeah, of the 3, this is the one that I really like from your side of it. We sort of had a look at the stats, and you stick him on your roster. I mean, this guy's had at least 2 seasons. Well over the 200 point mark. He wasn't far off again this season.
It's such a non-sexy pick, though, isn't it?
For me, it's one of those, as we did, we went through the stats, sort of looking at the games, looking at the snap counts, and he's one of those players that a lot of IDP sort of, fantasy players are going to go, yeah, okay, but he's a bit, he has his good weeks are good and his bad weeks are mediocre to a bit poor. But again, with the changes that Arizona have made, the potential for more game time, like you said, keep an eye on what they do, in the draft, etc. But there's definitely scope there for that snap count to improve. I mean, what I'm looking at now, the good games are good. They're 25, pushing 30 points, over 30 points.
I think what I liked about it as well is like sometimes when you see the season snap percentage, it can be sometimes warped because what you end up with is, say you've got five weeks of high snap and then 5 weeks of low snap that gives you the 50% in the middle. You know what I mean? When the reality is with him is his were 70%, 79, 66, 71, 51, 73, 71, 50. You know what I mean? So you're in this plus 50 bracket every week with the guy. And this was when, we know there was an injury, but Chandler Jones, we know there was an injury with JJ Watt. But still, the thing is the fact that he got 11 sacks, he got to the quarterback again. And the fact that they've let Chandler Jones go like they have, I just got this feeling that Marcus Golden could could have an uptick. And if he does, the guy's reliable. He is reliable when he's playing.
And I think he looking at the stats and based on what we've been discussing, I mean, he is, I can't argue with you. I mean, you're not going to play him every week, but it ties in with something that, we'll talk about as we get, into, the regular season. That is someone you can put on the bench and you look at the matchup next week and go, he will get to the QB. That O-line's shit. And, the numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
So, and it's no coincidence. You're looking down this list and, some of the big weeks, Detroit, Houston, he's gonna score big because, they're poor teams. But again, you can pick some of the, the other games. And I'm looking at them going, well, they didn't have a great O-line. So, you might not start him every week, but you pick your matchups and he's going to do damage and he's going to get points. I think it's a great shape. Absolutely.
So, and I've got let's have a gander here, right? Let's have a little gander at what are there. This is what we're talking about, right? So hang on. Just trying to work out where we've got. Is that a league season? Yeah, I think that is the league season. So you got a Rams. We know this, don't we? We know all the fixtures are right, aren't they? Yeah, of course they are.
Yeah.
So they've got Rams first, 49ers, then they've got Seattle, Saints, Tampa. I mean, not being funny or anything, but there's a bag full of games here where just straight up. I mean, we don't know who the Seattle Seahawks. They obviously got Seattle twice. Yeah, there's potential. There's potential decent matchups for him this year. I mean, there's none that really massively stand out. I mean, I suppose he's lost Russ this year, which is a shame. Russ loves to lie down. He does though, but I mean, and that's something for somebody like Marcus Golden. Maybe that's a little bit of a not having. But we don't know who the Seahawks QB is. He might be elusive. He might be happy to take a sack. If he is, then
happy days.
Happy day. Well, it is for Marcus Golden. But right. So that pretty much wraps up where we are.
Well, I'm going to throw one in sort of right at the end because we've touched
we can stay. We're not in any rush. Let's stay on.
No. Well, as you may have known, just for the record, I haven't broken. This isn't sort of MFI's. I'm broken into it. This is actually my showroom. This isn't my house anymore. So
better curtains.
Yeah, well, it's the lighting's better and no dogs running around. So this is. I'm not recording this from B&Q or anything. This is actually my showroom. So it was just easier to do it this way. No interruptions. But just very quickly, and it kind of ties in. Wraps things up nicely because it was something that the guys on Fancy and Frames were talking about this morning. They've been doing similar things to us, talking about risers and sort of fallers across the board. But the latest pod just happened to be on the DBs, and we haven't really sort of, we've been talking about sort of linebackers, edge, DLs. And when we sort of discussed this last week, it was a case of okay, and we picked out a couple, but and there were a couple I was thinking about. I mean, Jevon Hollins, from a Miami point of view, had a great rookie season. I think he'll go again. Although again, you're looking at what they're doing on the other side of the ball. I expect the Dolphins to be, God willing, if it all goes according to plan with Mr. McDaniels, a lot better on offense, so the defense won't have to work as hard. But Jevon Holland showed more than enough to prove he's going to be, the real deal for me. JC Jackson, something Nathan and I discussed. We love that move to the Chargers, but that's is he going to be sort of, the player that sort of we really liked at the Pats? I think he'll be the main ball hawk there, but Jordan Whitehead, the guys on Fancy in Frames sort of touched on, moved to the Jets. I think he's a great shout. I think he'll have a good season. But the one player I said to Nathan, and we can't do any stats on this guy because there aren't any really, but I think he has been, and again, it's a bit of a gamble, but I think you've got to be looking at JC Horn at the Panthers. as I say, 3 games, 1 pick, a few tackles. But for me, again, it's a team that, don't really know what they're doing on offense. So you expect the defense to have a lot on its plate. But there's still got to be, for me, a reason that this kid was drafted as high as he was last year. He's what, 6'1", 200 pounds. I mean, he's the epitome of a cornerback for me. And yes, okay, in hindsight, the Panthers are probably going, yes, we passed on Micah Parsons and Justin Fields and Mac Jones. Yeah, I mean, for me, he's probably still on an awful lot of rosters anyway, but it's one of those. I don't think people should be, if you have dropped him off because of the injury, okay, yeah, he wasn't going to do anything for you after that, but I just think he's got to be worth a look in what is technically his second season. But
yeah,
I don't know what your thoughts were on Mr. Horn.
So first, obviously, I was going to cut you off without you letting you do your third player. So that was really well done, Brendan. You done really well to factor that back in and make it look like you just added somebody on.
We'll take this out in post.
I just all like, God, shit, yeah, JC. As soon as you were like, I was like, oh yeah, JC Horn. We forgot about him. Sorry, but yeah, no, the Panthers are as a whole, really. When you look at how high we were pre-season last year, this time last year,
massive on that young defense. Yeah,
well, just the Panthers as a whole. I mean, people were quite high on Darnold and everything going offense-wise as well. It has been incredible, really, what happened to the Panthers and how low we all are on everything now. I mean, I know apart from probably Brian Burns, who's still being drafted, he's going to be drafted particularly quite highly, I think. But the rest, it is, and Jeremy Chin. But yeah, I mean, I was really excited to see JC Horn there. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, we shouldn't. We're talking about some of the corners. So from the rookie draft coming our way, we're talking about corners like Derek Stingley Jr. and players like that look absolutely mint. But I'll tell you what, JC Horn was he's fire, mate. And it's like, yeah, it is like that they've got their first round pick coming. He's coming this year.
Yeah. So
you know what I mean? So we shouldn't be too low on them or quick to judge it, to say that they've done nothing, especially secondary wise. It's going to be really, really cool to see. I can't. You can't just because of what happened, injury wise, and that you can't.
They've re-signed Dante Jackson as well, haven't they?
Yeah. So I mean,
you've got a couple of decent.
They're a decent outfit, the Panthers in secondary. Yeah, they are. I mean, Chin. The only issue you get sometimes, I think, is Chin because he's again. Anybody that's been watching this. Let's watch this podcast for a while. Know that I hate the old Swiss Army knife saying, but with him, with Jeremy Chin, they've got potentially somebody that can play kind of all over the place, and that's when they're not settled. The Panthers, then they're going to ask Chin to do more. Like when their pass rush isn't working, when this isn't working, they're going to ask him to do a bit more. That's what's going to happen. But if they can settle and sort some of those other parts out, including secondary, then it's one of those ticks in the box for them. So then players like Chin can possibly do what he was probably rostered to do. I know people might say, "Oh yeah," but the good thing was he could do all these things. But yeah, but still a player has his core position, and I think that's you know what I mean when they're being pulled left, right, and center, really. And I think for me, JC Horn is one of those players that they really needed last year, and it was such a shame that he got injured. And hopefully this year we're going to get to see a really, really good player in action. Because what was his stats? There's like three games or something. He got a pick in those games, didn't he?
Three games, one pick, 5 tackles.
Did he not?
I don't even need to look at it. It didn't take long to do my own work on his 21 season, to be honest. So but just be nice to see him fit and playing really.
But but the fact that he's got a pick under his belt as well, it's a big deal. It's a big deal for a rookie corner to get his first pick in the NFL.
Everyone saw him in those first 3 games just went, he does, okay, we understand why he went off the board, what was it, 8th, I think, in last year's draft, and why the Panthers negated the options of going for, some of the players I mentioned earlier, because it made sense.
Yeah.
You had a solid, he had possibly the last piece they needed in that secondary in what we touched on last summer, a young defense. And it made the whole thing really exciting. Then, the broken foot and surgery required and the season's written off. And it was a shame. I'm not saying, there were more pieces to the Panthers sort of demise last season than just the JC Horn injury. But would he have made a difference fully fit for 17 games? Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know, but if you remember rightly, they went 3 games. They won the first 3 games of Panthers.
Yeah.
Can you remember? It's crazy, isn't it? Talk about the demise of the Panthers. It's quite incredible because at game 3, can you remember Sam Darnold was like the leading rusher. Wait, I think he was the leading rusher for like week 5 or something stupid, wasn't it? But I mean, now, nobody's got a good word to say about him, and it's like, I don't know. I just feel that, okay, let's just rewind slightly. Let's go back, have a little look at the stats, have a look at actually what happened.
Well, I mean, when you're right. I mean, when you talk about the Panthers, we were talking about in July, August last year, and I mean, I've just pulled up the power rankings again now, and they're 23rd, up 7 places.
They did beat the Jets. They did beat the Jets. They had the Jets, the Saints,
I think quite a soft
and the Texans. Yeah, okay. So they didn't quite defeat the anything. Oh, hang on. We've got some breaking. We've got some IDP breaking. This is good. The Rams are signing All-Pro linebacker Bobby Wagner to a deal.
Well, there you go. That's the Von Miller hole plugged. So
I don't think it's IDP wise. It's not great. That's not a great landing spot for me. Like you said, talking about linebackers like Bobby Wagner as well, is the fact that the interior defensive line is particularly quite good at the Rams as well. So when you talk about the run game, then the second level linebacker. I mean, we've seen the Rams just play with one, sometimes none.
Yeah.
They play with no linebackers. Good old. So poor old Bobby. He's gone to somewhere that doesn't. Anybody that gets Bobby Wagner is going to do okay from it. I'm sure they're going to use him to his full capabilities. But from an IDP perspective, that's not the greatest landing spot, is it?
No, he's going to be off the board early because it's Bobby Wagner. But
happy days, let him take him. I'll take Jordan.
I'll have DJ Edwards or Jordan Brooks or.
Thank you. No worries.
Or if you fancy rolling the dice, I'm a Kyle Walker. So.
Oh Jesus. I'll still go Bobby Wagner.
Oh, that doesn't.
I don't know though, but like you said, it's a good old cheeky pickup.
Well,
right.
That's what I'm here for.
Right. Now we have done all 6 players.
You really could have let that go. No one would have known.
Oh, fuck it. It's more fun. More fun, to be honest.
Right.
But anyway, right.
We've definitely covered all the players now, so that's it.
Yeah, happy days. Right. So that's it from us. We hope you enjoyed the show. Remember to get in touch if you're interested in joining any IDP leagues. Also, catch up on some of the Fantasy and Frames articles that are out there because they're going to be talking about the same stuff we're talking about. Start improving your IDP knowledge. That's what I would say to people that are out there. Just try and do a little bit. Listen to the pods. Start to know the players that we're talking about. Not the big ones. Everyone knows the big ones. But honestly, talking about, the ones that are just, they're coming to the fruition right now. And there's a lot. And then you'll start to understand the value of these. We'll talk about the value in future pods. We're also, I'm quite interested in sharing some of the scoring side of things, as in the relativity between offense and defense and all that kind of stuff. And I know Nate Markham, who is the other chap on Fantasy and Frames, George and Nate has done wonders, I believe, on putting together the difference between offense and defense and their values. So listen to their stuff, check that out. Yeah, thanks for tuning in. This is our first show, really, of the proper new season. Hopefully, I haven't even mentioned it to Bren, but we might be back next week with, if you're free, IDP rookie reviews, and maybe, hopefully, a guest or two. Talking about the guests, we hope to have Fantasy and Frame guys on. We've already been invited over to their show, so, we're going to be on there at some point. So just remember, guys, stay safe and keep rushing. See you soon.